Okay, well, welcome everyone to Branding Essentials, creating, placing, and protecting your brand. So let's see, let's go to the next slide here. All right, so just a little bit about the Small Business Development Center before we get started on the training today. So we are a nonprofit organization. We provide confidential, no-cost advising and training services. So we provide workshops such as this one, and then also the one-on-one advising. That one-on-one advising is always no cost. We're here to support small businesses in any way that we can. And then we are also sponsored by the Small Business Administration, as well as the state of California. So here are some of our team members for our local center here. And then we also have access to other advisors throughout the Northern California region. So our service center here at the Shasta-Cascade, we serve Shasta and Trinity counties here in Northern California, but there are SBDCs that serve counties across the US. So we'll get to that a little later today, how you can reach out to your local center. All right, so we do have to read this disclaimer before we get going. So the information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSU-sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. All right, so I will hand it over to our presenter today, Zach Barton.
Okay, thanks, Emily, and thank you guys for joining. Just so you have an idea of who you're hearing from, my name is Zach Barton. I have 19 years of professional experience. I am the founder of an agency called Barton Interactive. We did have a couple offices. One was in Redding, California. Now we are headquartered in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, which is in the greater Cleveland area. That's where I am at the moment. So I lead a full service web design agency that helps promote ambitious brands of all shapes and sizes, grow and thrive online with expert design development, marketing, and advertising services. And I have had the privilege of serving some clientele, including Eddie Bauer, Wet Seal, Vitamin Shop, Wells Fargo, Eli Tahari, Skechers, and more. But a lot of brands that are, smaller in size and medium in size as well. And I would just pause here and say, it looks like we have a slightly smaller group, which, the good news with that is that we can keep this a little bit more conversational. And that's kind of my favorite. So first of all, before I keep gabbing, I wanted to stop and say, hey, how's it going? And, I would encourage you to use the chat so I know that you are awake and alive. And I'd love to ask you guys some questions as we're going through. And this will be almost a little bit more, almost like a round table, rather than, me just speaking for, an hour or so. Okay, so maybe a first question would be, where are you located? And what's the name of your business? I would love to hear that. So as I kind of go through this objective of what, generally speaking, we're going to be covering, I would love to hear from you if you want to drop that in the chat, okay? So our objective, though, while you're doing that, would be by the end of this presentation that you would have an understanding of the basics of branding and why that is important. Why you might want to take time for that and how to get started with that when you're thinking about your company's logo, colors, brand name, your overall tone, your message, those kinds of fun things. And what I had written here will no longer apply. I said, hey, save your questions for the end. But I would say, since it's a smaller group, feel free to just drop them in the chat. And I'm going to pause here and there and I will I'll try to address them as they come in, or at least at certain points while I pause to catch a breath or grab a quick drink. So, okay, so we have Tiffany, located in Anderson, doesn't have a business yet, currently in the exploring stage. Perfect time to be attending a webinar like this. So hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully this is super applicable and helpful to you. And then we have Danielle chiming in. Thanks, guys. You are in Reading, tow tally camping in RV sales and service dealership. Love it. And then Nikki, the St. Croix mermaid. Okay. On the island of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I've actually been there, so that's really wild. I love the Virgin Islands, and I would say that's an absolute life changer. So very cool. Well, thanks for chiming in, guys. I'll be dropping some questions in here and there. Another one really quick for you would be, what would be what would you say is your level of expertise when it comes to branding? Would you say that you are a total newbie? You're here to learn and don't really know a whole lot about it, or maybe somewhere in the middle you have some experience, or would you say that you are such an expert that you could probably teach this class? And feel free to chime in. Hi, Lindsay, welcome. The Learning Curve, a tutoring company. Cool. Thank you, Lindsay, for mentioning that. So I'm going to let you guys answer while I kick it off with a little bit of basic definitions here. Okay, that's what we're going to start off with. So branding is the process of creating an identity for your brand, establishing who you are as a business or organization, helping to differentiate your brand from other brands. So your brand identity will communicate core values about your company, your organization, to your clients or customers, giving them a picture of what you stand for and how you will be interacting with them. And I'm going to have a lot of fun pictures and logos and examples. So your brand identity will be communicated through your brand name, your logo, colors, the tone, and all sorts of stuff. It sounds like we have, you guys are chiming in. Thanks for chiming in again. Either saying that you don't know a lot, and then Tiffany's also saying that knows enough to know that you still have a lot to learn. That's a great attitude. I'm dropping this in because I thought this was really good. Brands have three primary functions. So navigation, what does that mean? So brands help consumers choose from a bewildering array of choices, right? So if you're a shoe store, what makes you different from the other 1,000 shoe stores in the area, right? Reassurance. So brands communicate the intrinsic quality of a product or service and reassure customers that they have made the right choice. And then engagement. Brands use distinctive imagery, language, and associations to encourage customers to identify with the brand. And then just if you're one of those people who are like, yeah, but just what's the classic definition? Well, here's a dictionary definition for you. What is a brand? So now there's different uses of the word brand, think of like branding a cattle or things like that. But definition 4D for Merriam-Webster would be the one that we're looking for here. So it's a public image, reputation, or identity conceived of as something to be marketed or promoted. An example straight from the dictionary would be the comedian Dane Cook apparently believes that he is building his brand by pumping out a steady stream of comments on Twitter. I actually can't remember who Dane Cook is, but that's a good example of the word brand. Let's see here. And then a good quote on that would be, and this is from a gal who wrote a book called Designing Brand Identity. And I'm going to mention this book a couple of times during this presentation because this is one of my very favorite books on creating a brand and brand identity. So if you are in the process, you really want that, and you want some reading, I'll talk more about this book later. No affiliation or association or anything. I just think it's a great book. But a great quote from that book on what a brand is would be, as competition creates infinite choices, companies look for ways to connect emotionally with customers become irreplaceable, and create lifelong relationships. A strong brand stands out in a densely crowded marketplace. People fall in love with brands. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of true, right? They trust brands and they believe in their superiority. I mean, I can definitely, picture that and think that, man, that's true for me. How a brand is perceived affects its success, regardless of whether it's a startup, a nonprofit, or a product. And so some people, I think, get really confused. Like, what's the difference between a brand, like branding, and what's the difference between brand and identity? So I inserted this funny little slide here, but to the left, we have brand image. So a brand image is how someone sees your brand. So if you think Apple, the brand Apple, like I'm on a MacBook Pro right now. So it's like if I think of Apple, I think of Mac, like I think of my laptop, I think of my phone, and I don't mean to be like a, fanboy or anything. I don't have bumper stickers or tattoos of apples or anything like that. But I happen to think that's a really good laptop and it's a good phone till the battery dies. That's different. What I think about that company, that is the brand image, right? In comparison to the brand identity, quote unquote. And that identity is, that's a fancy word for the company name, logo design, packaging, colors, tagline, and typefaces, okay? Or fonts. So those are two different things. So, we're just hitting some basic definitions here before we get to the really fun slides, but it's good that we're talking the same language, right? Before we keep moving. So just a tiny bit more on that. So what is brand identity? So a definition from Investopedia would be the visible elements of a brand. So color, design, logo, that identify and distinguish the brand in the consumer's minds. And I'm going to show you why that's a thing in just a moment. Like, why do we need that? So then they also have important. Building a brand identity is a multidisciplinary strategic effort. And I totally agree with that. Every element needs to support the overall message and business goals. So in other words, it's really awkward if you're, for example, this just comes to mind, if you're talking to someone via email and they're all business, but then in their signature line, they're using like Comic Sans or something like that. And boy, that just doesn't reinforce their message or business goals. That's kind of makes me almost a little bit nervous if I see something like that, right? But here are some other brands that as soon as you see their logos, you're immediately thinking certain things, probably a bunch of things, right? So another quote from that book, brand identity is tangible. It appeals to the senses. You can see it, touch it, hold it, hear it. You can watch it move. Brand identity fuels recognition, amplifies differentiation, makes big ideas and meaning accessible. You can communicate a whole lot with a picture, in other words, or a logo. Brand identity takes disparate elements and unifies them into whole systems. So you're going to see photos quite a bit from here forward, and a lot of them are just from right around here, right by our office. So this is a shop right down the street from our office, really famous in the area. But so enjoy those random local photos. But so why is branding important? So we're going to hit some fundamentals here. Why is branding important? Before I answer it, I want you guys to chime in if you'd like. Do you have any idea, like, why is branding important? We already mentioned a couple of things here, but what comes to mind with you guys? Do you have any thoughts on this? I'm going to let you guys chime in, but as you're answering, it sets you apart from your competitors. We already mentioned a couple of times, it creates a distinct culture around who you are, what you offer, how you offer it. Yes, Tiffany, thanks for chiming in. So people recognize you. Absolutely. And to your point, Tiffany, my son, he's 6, but even when he was, I think, I don't know if I would say 2, but maybe 3, something like that. he could instantly recognize the McDonald's logo, you know, for better or for worse, before he could even read. So that's, you know, that's something there. Anyways, thanks for chiming in. And so, and then, yeah, it can create a lasting first impression. It could make your brand easily identifiable. Nikki's saying to get the word out about your business. Absolutely. Because if you have no branding and no logo, all it is a bunch of text in a random font. That's really hard for people to latch onto. There's no, I've heard the term stickiness. There's no stickiness there. How's that going to stick in someone's mind, right? And here's an example. I recently took my family to New York City, and you know, we wanted to get some New York style pizza, and I asked a couple of friends who are New Yorkers or go to New York often. I said, "Hey, what's the best local pizza?" And they said, "Joe's. You got to go to Joe's." And so I thought, hey, no problem. I believe that's in Manhattan. We're in Manhattan. So as we're walking around, I just pull up my phone. I'm thinking, I'm just going to punch in Joe's Pizza near me or NYC or, you know, whatever. And I did that. And there are a bajillion Joe's Pizzas in New York City, which is fine, except there's no logo next to any of the search results, at least that I could see. And I didn't know, I'm looking at all these different Joe's Pizzas all over the place, and I didn't know which ones were, is only one of them the right Joe's? Is Joe's a string? Like, is it a chain? Like, I was so confused by that. It's so different just seeing that text, like I said, rather than being able to see their identity. You know what I mean? So I actually had to reach back out to my friend and said, okay, here are the locations, which one? So in branding, you know, you build reliability in the eyes of others, showing them you're well established. I think there's a lot to that too. Just having a great looking logo just already speaks volumes. Attracting new customers or clients by becoming more memorable or differentiated from competitors. Now here's a quick example. These are two different businesses pretty close to our office over here. The one on the right, you're probably going to recognize, that's Crate and Barrel. And the one on the left, you're probably not going to recognize. I won't say the business name. You're going to be really surprised to hear that they actually have the same, pretty much same target audience. Now I will give the company on this, on the left, I'll give them this. This was during a sidewalk sale day around here. But to know that these two different businesses exist in the same area, targeting the same people, and have such different looks, it's shocking to me. And you know, you can just see the power of the brand here when you look at that Crate and Barrel versus the one on the left. It doesn't have that. What even if that is a great business, I don't know. I haven't shopped there, but I just thought, wow, the difference is just, it's so wild right here. So I think having a good logo and good branding, I think that is important. Here's some other reasons why I would say that having a really solid brand is important. So according to studies, 75% of people recognize a brand by its logo. You know, we just talked about that. A logo color makes up 90% of a consumer's first impression. That's just crazy. And then the last one here, a human brain can process images 60,000 times faster than words. So this is why most businesses select visual branded logos. Isn't that crazy? 60,000 times. So at this point, hopefully you're wondering, like, okay, so what steps can I take to create a brand identity? Like, what can I do as a business owner or entrepreneur to do this? And so this is one of the gals that works in our office here. Hopefully she doesn't mind me using her photo. Some of these are from a photo shoot we did last year. But first, I would personally make a list of your competition. And a lot of businesses that I work with, they don't think to do this. I would say the majority never think to do this. Some of them do, but I always say, you know, what do you think of their website, your competitors' websites? What do you think of their logos? Now, sometimes we'll work with churches or nonprofits, and they're like, well, we don't really have competitors. And it's like, okay, well, maybe replace that word with contemporaries. Okay, so even if you're not competing with anybody, who are your peers? What other businesses or organizations do what you guys do, preferably in the same area. What do you think of their logos? What do you think of their promotional literature? Their PDFs or their brochures, business cards, that kind of stuff. What about their website? Does it reflect their brand? Does it appeal to the target audience? And next step would be considering the brand name. There's me over there. I only had so many photos from our photo shoot to work with, but so a brand name, a good one, would hopefully do the following: identify the type of service or product you offer. And I think it's going to be hard to find. I can immediately think of really amazing, huge brands that don't tick all these boxes, but I would say, the more the better, probably. Identify the type of service or product you offer, help customers or clients remember you, engage your audience emotionally, distinguish your brand from your competitors. Now, I was talking to Emily before this presentation. We do have some recommended reading in here. So if you are at the point where you're like, hey, I need a brand name, you don't have a brand name yet, I do have some recommended reading here. There is a PDF, and maybe Emily, if you want to drop it in the chat. Now, no affiliation at all with these guys, but this is just a really solid PDF that I've used for years. It's from a company called Catchword. All they do is create brand names, but they have a great PDF guide on the different types of brand names, the pros and cons. There's only so many types of brand names. There's really imaginative ones, and then there's the really descriptive ones, and that kind of thing. They have different pros and cons. So this could be really helpful to you if you are, if you're in that stage. And then also good, there's PDF brand name exercise worksheets from Wow Branding. Again, no affiliation. I have not worked with either of these guys or anything like that. But Emily, it looks like she's dropping the links in the chat, so that's great. And these are so helpful if you are needing to work on your brand name. So if you want, you can download those. I think Emily's uploading them now. So, and I'm sure there's other great ones out there, but those are ones that I've used before. I just think they're really solid. All right. So, and you would also be wanting to, next think about your tone, your colors, and your type, whether you're just starting out or whether you're revisiting your brand. But you want those things to be true to how your audience, how you want them to perceive you. Okay, and here's some examples. This is right down the street. I just took this photo yesterday. But you have all these businesses next to each other, and some of them are kind of similar. Some of them are very different from one another. But we're trying to appeal to certain types of people, right? So you want to do that. You want to be appealing to your audience, of course. You want to choose words that align. You want to be drawing in, potential clients and customers, your specific target audience, more than just caring about what you like in particular, if possible. You want to create with a consistent tone. You want to build credibility, create connection, help people get to know your brand, right? All right. Thanks, Emily, for putting those up. Here's another business. This is in downtown Cleveland. The corner alley is a really fun place to bowl. But a great logo. So I always tell people it's the silent ambassador of your brand. What does that mean? That's saying that if someone is seeing your brand, they're interacting with your brand, you might not be there in person, right, to tell them what you guys do and what your elevator pitch is, right? Maybe the only interaction they might ever have is seeing your brand logo. So if you're walking by this place right here, the corner alley, you don't have their business owner or marketing manager standing there giving you an elevator pitch. Now, all you're going off of is that logo. So what is that logo saying, and what is your logo? What is that saying to people who might be walking by your business or seeing it on a billboard or a flyer or an ad, right? So if you are either creating a new logo, and this is where we're really going to camp out for a good portion of this webinar. This is the really fun stuff to me. If you're thinking about redesigning your logo, or you need to create a new one, you're probably wondering like, okay, well, what makes a good logo? Like, I know why we need one, but how do I do that? I think a lot of people think that just seems impossible, or that just seems incredibly hard, or super expensive, or I had someone text me a week or two ago. They go, I need a logo. I have no idea where to start. So that I have no idea where to start. And so there are different ways to approach this. And I'm gonna just tell you, I don't know everything. I know I have one piece to the puzzle, so to speak. And I'm going to share that with you. So this is how I would approach it personally if I needed to create a new logo. Okay. So the way I would answer this, if someone were to ask me this, or if they were going to say, I need a new logo, I don't know where to start. I love to tell people that there are different criteria that would indicate whether a logo is a great logo or a not so great logo, or somewhere in the middle. And I love to tell people, the more of these criteria you can check off, the greater its likelihood for success or longevity. It's almost like, it reminds me of when my wife and I were trying to figure out what school to put my son in. We looked at our options, and my wife was a teacher for a long time. She's not anymore, but she was a teacher. And so she was very, I was already picky about the school thing, but she was even more. And so we went as far as creating a rubric and said, okay, what are our criteria here? What's going to make the school a good school? And the more boxes that we could check off of that, the better we felt about it. We've used that approach in a couple of things over our marriage now. But I would say you could do the same thing with the logo. So I'm going to share with you 15 different criteria, what I would say would make a great logo. And the more of these that you can check off, the better. Okay. Now, I love to give credit where credit's due. This is the book that I mentioned toward the beginning. Not all of these, but some of these are based on a similar list in that book that I mentioned. This is my favorite book on creating brand identities. And the book is called Designing Logos. So if you were to say, I need to really dig in as much as I possibly can, this is a great book. So I would check this one out. I'm sure there are other great ones, but this one I can vouch for. So let's dig in. First of all, I would say a great logo is aesthetically pleasing. Okay, and aesthetically meaning, is it a good looking logo? So this one, I would say, some might say, well, isn't that all just up to the people who see it? Yeah, it can be hard to quantify if something's aesthetically pleasing or not. But let's be real here. We can be intentional about this and survey friends or even better, coworkers, or even better, somehow maybe our target audience, and see what did they find aesthetically pleasing, instead of just going off of what we, the business owners, think of what would be, a good looking logo, right? So, but before that, like, do you even like looking at your logo? If you have one, like, how does it make you feel? Or do you think, oh, I love it? Or do you cringe when you see it? All of the above happen every day. Some business owners love their brand, some or their identity. Some are like, oh, they're embarrassed by it. So how does it make you feel? Do your peers like it? Do they make fun of it? Or do they think it's amazing? Is it as good or better than your competition? And this is just a photo from a photo shoot we did last year of us working on a logo for a company. But here are some examples of logos that I would say I think they look good, regardless of whether, I'm not saying, hey, go buy these products, no affiliation, but I think that's a good looking logo. And that one too, I don't even know if I eat those things. We might have them in the house, I'm not sure. Even this one, I think those are good looking logos. Just a few quick examples for you. Number two, is it conceptually focused and clear? So I think there's a lot more to the logo being good than is it just it just being a good looking logo. Is it clear when it comes to the concept that you're trying to convey? And I think this is a hard one. I think that a lot of logos, even some really good companies, probably don't pass this one, but let's dig into what this means. So whether your logo majors on your brand name or brand symbol, it should, if you can, help to communicate what the big idea is that you're trying to broadcast about your company. Okay, what's the big idea that you're trying to share about your company? And do you know if that idea is coming through? Here's an example. I just took this photo yesterday down the street, but this is on the front of a shop and they sell custard. Okay, what's the big idea? Like they're trying to convey that this custard is the same exact custard that used to be sold at a place called Euclid Beach, which is a historical place that everybody in the Cleveland area knows and loves from decades ago. Everybody loved Euclid Beach back in the day. It was very popular in the 60s. And so to know that you could still buy that Euclid Beach custard. So it's very conceptually clear to any local in the area. Some other logos that you would recognize, though, In-N-Out Burger, that's very conceptually clear. You get in, you get out, you got your burger, right? Shopify, there's a shopping bag right there. And the whole "if-I" thing means they're turning it into something, right? It's just clear to me. 1-800-Flowers. Okay, it's could be a tiny bit confusing that there's a 1-800 in there, but probably not too confusing. They sell flowers. You know, it's pretty conceptually clear. I'm going to pause and get a drink of water. Can you guys think of any other examples while I'm doing that? And is this making sense? Is this helping? I'll give you guys another second to chime in here. Okay, Tiffany chiming in. Yes, this is good. Excellent. You know, I put you guys on the spot there trying to come up with examples. If you think of any, go ahead and throw them in there. And if not, that's okay. So the next one would be clever and unique. Is your logo clever? Is it unique? Because there are a lot of logos. Just walking down the street by our office here yesterday, I thought, man, there are some logos that really look similar. And I'm trying to think of what their names are, and I can't actually remember because they look similar. And I'm not trying to dog them or anything, but so is your logo clever? Is it unique? So a unique logo shows that you're a unique company. You might be one of 100 bakeries selling cakes in your city, but nobody might sell them exactly like you do. So how does your logo reflect what makes you stand out from your competitors? So here's a picture I took yesterday of a business down the street called Applejack's Toys. So that logo really stands out. I mean, I'm not saying that it's the prettiest logo. I also don't want to talk bad about it or anything, but it is very distinct from the name to the aesthetic there. And so you can't forget it. And because of that, those guys made a splash when they moved in. I think it was last year. Everybody in the area knows who they are, even though they're brand new to the area. Where they're across the street might be businesses that have been there for a long time, but their logos and their brand names aren't distinctive, and so people couldn't even remember them. Like I can remember a minute ago, right? So some other ones that I would say are clever and or unique would be McDonald's. I think it's clever that they inserted fries, French fries like that into their logo and made it an M. That's clever. This one, love it or hate it, because a lot of people have strong feelings about this logo. This is one unique logo. My goodness. I remember the first time I saw this. I don't watch racing or anything, but I was flipping through the channels and somehow saw this logo as cars were zipping around a racetrack, and I was shocked. How did they land on this logo? I don't know, but we're talking about it today, so it's working for them, right? That is just so unique. And then I don't drink this stuff, but boy, I think this is a very, very unique and just memorable logo. So good job on that, right? Okay, number 4, the logo has an aha moment. What does that mean? So in other words, some logos, they have surprise imagery or meanings, like hidden meanings in the logo to make them more memorable. A couple examples would be the FedEx logo. Did you know that there's a hidden arrow in the X? I'd love for you to drop in the chat if you knew that already. by the way. So go ahead and make a quick comment if you can, if you already knew about the hidden arrow or the A to Z one that Amazon does. So the FedEx has a hidden arrow between the E and the X, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. And then Amazon, they have an arrow pointing from A to Z. And they're doing that to symbolize that they literally sell everything. Okay, so A to Z. And yeah, Nikki, you did not know. And I honestly didn't know. Thanks for chiming in. I did not know about the FedEx thing either until I started, until I went to art school. And then it was like this big thing. And everybody was like, that's the ultimate hidden message in a logo right there. And I'm sure there are other great ones. But what can people discover in your logo? Is there any kind of fun hidden meaning? And here's a picture of the arrow that I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys are checking for that right now, but I have it up on the screen. Looks like you guys are chiming in. Yeah, isn't that neat? So Danielle is pulling it up as well. It's super fun that they have it. And now you're not going to be able to unsee it. Now, whenever you see the FedEx logo, you're going to be looking right at that arrow. But that's just genius, right? And that is Shanadora, thanks for chiming in. That is just so wild to me. It's just so good. Now that is a very, very expensive, well done logo to get us all talking about it that much. And there's the Amazon one. I think this is also looks like a smiley face to me. I think between the type and the typography and that shape, I think this is a very, very warm and friendly logo. But it's also got the strength. It's got the black and yellow, golden yellow color combination. Anyways, another one, scales in size well. So why would this matter? I think if you've been around with your business, if you've been around for a while, you're going to find this one out pretty quick. If you're only working on the computer and that's the only place you've seen your logo, that's one thing. But and I have a pen in my hand here. How does your logo look on a pen, right? Can it squeeze all the way down into a pen? Does it look okay if you blow it all the way up to a billboard? And I was thinking to myself a day or two ago, well, why wouldn't it look okay in a billboard? Well, I guess one example would be I've had businesses send me a logo that needs to be enlarged, and it's this pixelated old, photo of a napkin or whatever the heck it is, and it's just, no, that can't be scaled up. It's not vector, So you got to make sure that it's going to look on different size mediums. I can't say that it has to look good. This is down the street from our business here just yesterday, but it doesn't have to look good on every single medium on the planet. Good luck with that. But at least the ones that you think you might use, right? And so these are a few businesses that this is a great coffee shop here, but that obviously scale their logos up to go onto signage, but they also have it smaller on the doors there. They have it on their cups and pens and that kind of fun stuff, right? Here's an example. So this is Alternative Press, their logo, the AP logo that you've probably seen in the news here and there. And when you scale it down, this is a screenshot I took on my phone. You see AP. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see it just fine. That scales very well, in my opinion. They did a great job at that. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, but in contrast, Reuters, now at full size, I think this Reuters logo looks pretty nice. When I see this, I think this was probably a pretty expensive logo, and it looks pretty good. However, boy, you scale this one down. This is from my phone. I took a screenshot a couple of days ago. But man, look at that. You cannot see that. It just doesn't scale well. I'm not trying to talk bad about them at all. Just the logo it's just illegible when it goes down to that size, right? Next up, we would have works in one color and no color. So sometimes you'll see a logo and it's like, it's very clearly working in just one or two colors or no color, black and white or grayscale. Sometimes you'll see a logo, and I'm kind of looking around the office as I'm saying this for examples, but I'll show you some examples in a second here. Sometimes you'll see some that don't really work that well when they're forced into just black and white. So why would this matter? Well, what if your business needs to take an ad out in the newspaper? And what if you don't have a color option in there? Or maybe the color is not as nice as on the computer. What if you need to have a return shipping label? Maybe you're in e-commerce. Or maybe you have a clothing label. My business designed some clothing labels a year or two ago. And if you want to start having a lot of colors in there, that gets very, very, very expensive. That eats into your profit margin real quick. As I was looking at this presentation the other day, I thought, I just ate at a restaurant. Their logo was black and white on the receipt. And I see a question coming in. I'm going to check on that in just a moment. To make sure that it'll work, some designers will go as far as beginning with a black and white version. So if you are creating a new logo or redesigning your logo, that might be a great step in the process closer to the beginning, maybe after the research and reference material step. But hey, just make sure the thing looks solid in black and white before we go so far into color that we don't know if it'll work in black and white. Now I did see a question come up, oops, and I somehow lost it. Emily, can you possibly pull that question up as I take another quick sip here?
Yeah, so someone's asking, they have an issue with the text on the logo when it's scaled down,
Yeah.
asking if it's okay to separate that text from the logo image, or should they always go together?
That's such a good question. And I think you're going to see, as you really look around, you're going to see a mix of how different businesses or brands, I should say, because I want to be inclusive of our organization friends as well. But I think you're going to see a mix of responses in that, and I even look at our logo behind me as I'm speaking, and that, we have a B logo mark, and I guess if you can have it where you can have it both ways, I don't know everything, but I can tell you that I really appreciate being able to have a little bit of versatility. So for example, like if we need to, we can just have the B mark, or if it looks better, we can have the B mark and then the name. Or in certain applications like the sign, it looks silly to have the B mark in the name. So it just looks good to just have the name, but it doesn't look confusing or weird. Okay, good. That answered it. Great. To just have one or the other. So as long as there's, consistency, I personally think it can work, but it's one of those things where I don't think there's an official right or wrong answer. But that's my opinion. So, but yeah, can your logo work in one color or no colors? This is an award that we have in our office from a photo shoot from last year. And if you look closely, like you can see this logo on here from E-Tail. This was an event out west and from a while ago, but they had to, this was glass etched into this pyramid looking thing. They can't put colors on there. There's no colors, it's etched, so that's 0 colors there. And their logo is still legible. And it's a little hard to see in this photo, but if you walk up to it, you can see it and you can read it and it's just fine. I think a great logo would work in no colors or just one color like that. Here's a couple other examples. If you bank with Bank of America, you get a receipt, you're going to see a black and white receipt. And honestly, it looks just fine when you look at it, right? Remax, my wife is in real estate. She's not with Remax, but if she was, and she's closing on a house and there's all this paperwork, but you're probably going to be signing a ton of papers. Some of those might have a black and white Remax logo on it, and you can read it just fine, right? It doesn't lose anything. But here's another example in contrast. We have this I would say vintage at this point Apple logo, and it's everybody knows this logo, and Apple has one of the most famous logos, at least in our country, if not in the world. But when you go black and white with this one, oh man, I actually don't know that this one works. All I did was knock out the color, this is what we're left with. So I would say this one actually it doesn't really work as well going grayscale, so that's why a lot of great logos, they don't have a bunch of colors like this. They try to keep it real simple, to try to make it so you can replicate the logo real easily across many types of platforms. And I wonder if this right here is the reason why they ended up knocking out all the color out of that logo. If anybody happens to know, drop it in the chat. I should have researched that before mentioning it, but I'm guessing that had something to do with it, right? Easier to replicate. Okay, stands the test of time. So if your logo is brand new, if you're just redesigning it, or if you're just designing it, if you're not in a huge rush, see if you can settle on the logo after it's been created, and see if you can just wait on it and check on it after a month, or maybe even a couple months, to see if you still feel really good about it. Does it still feel strong to you, or does it now feel boring or weak? I don't know if you guys have ever tried this, but man, if I can see something with fresh eyes, so to speak, like if I'm doing some design work or monitoring design work of someone from our team, and I see something on Friday, and then I wait to comment on it till Monday, or if I see it again on Monday, I see it totally differently. Even just having that little bit of time in between, it allows me to see it almost a little bit more like it's being presented to me, rather than something that I was part of creating. I strongly recommend that. Logos, if you can, you don't want to be changing your logo very often. If possible, never, or very rarely. And we'll talk about that too. But does it look good in a month? Does it look good in 6 months? Or does it look good in, after years? Here's a business down the street from ours. It was actually the first business in our little downtown area. They've been around since 1857. Wow. And to be honest with you, it would be a real bummer to see them change their logo. Their logo is probably not going to win any design awards. Who cares? It's doing the job. And everybody loves that place. Everybody goes in there just to see it, If they change their logo to something modern, that would be heartbreaking. That would be such a bummer. So I think it's great that they have their logo. It's been sticking around a long time. And here's some other examples that you would have seen. The Stella logo, this, if I'm not mistaken, is the oldest logo currently in use. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe this is many hundreds of years old, this logo, or at least something very similar to it. So feel free to fact check me on that one. But that's what I was finding when I was doing a little bit of research on this. So interesting thought. This one, in contrast, the Pepsi logo, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Pepsi rebrand. I know that, so if you want to, drop it in the chat, and if not, that's okay. But when these guys updated their logo, what was it, 10 years ago? I don't even remember what year it was, but I was shocked. How did you guys feel about this? I was shocked that Pepsi redid their logo. I thought they had such a classic logo, and it was crazy to me that they completely changed it. And I felt like if my memory serves me correctly, they changed it a couple times within a very short amount of time. And I don't want to talk bad about them. In fact, I have a family that worked for Pepsi, but when they did that, I know that my perception of their brand was not what it was before they redesigned their logo. So, and then of course we have, in contrast to that, the Coca-Cola logo, where they've stuck with this logo for a long time, and it would be a huge bummer if they changed that, right? That is such a classic, good looking logo. I think it would hurt their reputation. I do, if they change their logo. Here's another one. Can your logo fit easily into a circle or square for web use? Has anybody had any issues with this one? Feel free to chime in if you're feeling chatty, and if not, that's okay. But I think a lot of people have to figure out man, how do I squeeze our logo down? Maybe they had a horizontal logo or a vertical logo, and Shanandra knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, on social media, yeah, resizing can be a pain, because then it's like, well, do we size down the full size logo, or do we create a profile picture version of our logo? And I had to wrestle with that with our business. And I've seen other companies and we've helped them navigate that, but see them wrestle with that as well. And that's not always a straightforward thing. If you have a logo, sometimes it can squeeze right down. If it's like a nice short word or something like that, or just a picture, like, yeah, sure. But sometimes it's not so straightforward. So does your logo look good on various web and mobile applications? It matters. For no reason, I chose Coke again, probably because it's just such a classic. It's one of the most popular logos, so we can all easily picture this. But yeah, I just randomly went to their Facebook page the other day just to make this slide. Like, okay, what do they have for this page? I was kind of surprised, but they squeezed down the entire 8 letters down into their profile picture. Okay, cool. There's, again, not really a right or wrong to this. It's just like what's going to work the best for your brand. But they also have this, whatever you call that thing, this swoosh looking guy in the back. That's interesting to me. I don't know that I would have done that, but I'm not saying that they're wrong for doing that. But your logo, and here's another updated slide with arrows now all over the place, because you want your logo to look good in these little fav icons. You can see all these little tiny versions of logos in my bookmarks bar, and of course there's the logo right here. There's a logo here, and here's my profile picture. That's a lot of companies would use their logo all the way to squeeze down to that. Some of these tiny little dots on the left are different groups I'm in. Believe it or not, those are the logos that they're using for their groups, if you want to even call them that. So it's a challenge to make it look good in all those places, but a great logo, I'd say, can somehow look great in all those different places. But you can see the comparison now that I think about it. Look at this right here. So in the fav icon, Facebook is just using the F, right? But when they spell it out. Coca-Cola, when they size down, they stick to the whole word Coca-Cola. They don't change. I guess it'd be fun to pull up their website and see what their fav icon is up in the browser tab, but we won't do that right now. So, all right, next up, can be animated. Can your logo be animated? This one's kind of in bonus territory, so I almost should have made this the last one, but I would say it's a good thing if your logo can also be animated. And why is that? Well, do you ever plan on being on television? Like, does your logo ever plan on being in a commercial? How about YouTube or Vimeo or anything like that? Or even one of those screens? We used to have a screen in our writing office. When people walked by, it was always playing. So anybody walking by could look in without even entering our office and see what we do and see examples of our work. I know some companies do that. But hey, if you can have your logo animating, that's a good bonus. A couple of examples of that. I'm going to show you. I have one example here, but a couple other ones came to mind in the last 24 hours or so. I was in a grocery store yesterday, and I didn't take nice pictures of this or anything, but there was some kind of alcoholic beverage called Freak Show. I don't drink, and I've never had that, but and I'm not knocking it either, but they had lights that go around it, almost like if you were at a carnival freak show or a circus freak show. And the picture like carnival lights, right? And the lights all the lights actually worked, and they were blinking on and off. So you couldn't miss this display. So that would even be one way, an old school way, but still be an animation there. Also kind of old school would be, there's a business down the street from us that reminds me of, if you're walking down the street in Las Vegas, where you see a neon sign and there's like 2 different animation frames to it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Where it shows one thing and then it blinks and switches over to the other thing and the other lights light up. It's basic and it's old school, but it works. It gets your attention, right? You can't not look at it. You have to watch it to see what happens. Here's another example. This is our company logo being animated here. But if you have something like this, then you can throw that on at the beginning or the end of a video or a commercial, and people love to look at that, right? Okay, number 10, avoids design trends. So this one is a tough one, I feel like, for business owners. I've seen business owners go after design trends, and it's really not a good move, and I'm going to tell you why. So if you're a business owner, and I would just say be careful whether you're making, decisions, or if you're paying a junior designer to throw together a logo or something like that. A seasoned vet logo designer would probably, hopefully, not do this. But if you're paying someone to design a logo, if you're designing it yourself and just using current design trends, I would caution you, because honestly, you really are setting yourself up for your logo to disappear amidst competition and look dated. And here are a couple of examples. So you've probably seen those logos that use an X in the middle of a logo. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But that's, in my opinion, that's already outdated, and that was just trendy 5 or 10 years ago. It was popular for a couple of years, and then boof, now it just looks outdated. There are other ones too, like using a hexagon for a couple of years recently. Everybody's using, like, all these new logos came out, they all looked like a hexagon. They're all minimalists. So is your designer showing you something that feels fresh and original if they're giving you design rounds? So these are a couple of examples of what I was talking about. I didn't want to show any companies here because I just don't want to be like, hey, look at this company, they're terrible. Nothing like that. That's not my heart at all. But these are very trendy, and I feel like they're kind of on their way out already, and you just don't want to look dated, right? Gap, they did this, and this turned into such a big story. Does anybody remember this Gap logo? It was like, it lasted 2 seconds. So the story, if so, drop it in the chat. But the story was something like they had, okay, instantly, okay, no, Shanadora doesn't recognize it. Okay, yeah, because it lasted such a short amount of time that, everybody knows that Gap logo on the left, and it's a, I think, a really good looking logo. It's a classic logo. It's like, ooh, don't touch that. There's a lot of brand equity. All right, Nikki, thanks for chiming in. So if you think back, I don't know when this was, probably in the 2000s, between like 2000, 2010, Helvetica, somewhere around there, was so super popular, right? Helvetica was like the biggest deal. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but this font is Helvetica. For some reason, everybody was like, oh, Helvetica. It was popping up everywhere. All these logos were coming up. Everybody was using Helvetica, and Gap was like, ooh, we want to get on board with the Helvetica thing. And so they went away from this classic logo, and they went over to this Helvetica version. And I remember I saw it in a store, and I was shocked. I'm like, what? Is this the same company? I was so confused. I'm like, is this the same company? I was very, it was startling. And I remember looking it up online, and there was all this outrage. And there was so much outrage that Gap immediately responded by saying, "Oops, okay, we're going to go back to the old logo." So they nixed this logo so quick. Such a weird thing, but this did happen. And another one, do you guys remember? Of course you remember this, right? I'd love for you to chime in if you want to. I love when these are nice and interactive. But so yeah, Lindsay, yeah. And so we have the icon, excuse me, the logo. It was an icon as well, but the Instagram logo on the left, I thought it was a pretty good looking logo. I know there's a lot of gradients and colors really used there, so that I'm surprised that they would go with that. But you guys probably remember when they switched over to this Instagram logo, and again, kind of like with the Gap thing, there was so much outrage over them switching to this logo. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I mean, it was okay. So Nikki likes it. I think my wife said the same thing. So I think some people like it, but I remember some people were so mad about it. They're like, what, they would record themselves in Photoshop making this logo themselves in like 2 seconds. I mean, more like 2 minutes. But so, you know, love it or hate it, this was another logo that everybody kind of freaked about. Anyways, moving on. So has an appropriate use of typography. So think, you know, fonts, typefaces, weights, in other words, like how bold it is or light it is. Kerning, that's this, you know, the spacing between the letters. Capitalization, okay. All that should telegraph your brand's style and message. So for a lack of, you know, better example, I think I have some examples coming up here, but an edgier brand might incorporate weathered text, maybe an old English kind of font. My wife and I were at a concert recently, and they had a can that's a liquid death, and it was old English. All it was a can of water, but they're trying to look so edgy and trying to get people that go to concerts to buy their can of water, you know. And I think that was probably working. People were like, oh, that's cool, liquid death, you know, and here's my $5 for a can of water. So I think it worked. You know, anyways, does the choice of typography used in your logo, if you have a logo, you know, does that really represent you? This is a photo I took yesterday of just a business down the street, that same Euclid Beach custard place. You know, this font, it's not a font that I would think to use. It's funny because now that I think about it, I did work for a company that used the same font. I think it's called Cooper. But anyways, you know, this I think could totally work. It's not, you know, a super gorgeous font or anything, and it's kind of old school. But so is this company. They're also old school. And it's fun, but it's bold, it's friendly. And I honestly, yeah, that font actually works in my opinion. Here are a couple other ones that I think work that you've probably seen. American Greetings is companies. I think they're headquartered here in Cleveland. I just think this typography works really well with a company that creates cards. It totally matches. Nike, yeah, I mean, it's bold, it's italic, it's heavy, it's all caps, you know, it's in charge, it's active. This, I've never played this game before, but you know, we probably all heard of it. That typography, it's kind of got this modern but military but kind of cool kind of thing to it, and it just totally makes sense from a typography standpoint. So I think they nailed the typography thing. Okay, has an appropriate use of colors. Now this is a fun one. We're going to talk about colors for a minute. Did you guys know that colors have their own language? Did you know that the colors, they each evoke different emotional responses? And I'd love for you to chime in. You know, did you know that when you see a certain color, your mind starts thinking certain things just from just seeing that color? Okay, and I'm going to give you some examples off the top of my head. If you're driving on the street and you see an orange barrel or an orange cone, your mind instantly thinks caution, right? Or if you see someone wearing all black, you know, your mind might start to jump to certain kinds of conclusions, be it this or that. But different colors have different types of emotional responses. Even this can of LaCroix that I'm drinking here, it's orange and it has different types of oranges on it. Well, it's because they're trying to get you to think about the tangerine flavor that it is, and that totally works. It's fruity, it's citrusy, whatever. So it's a really great thing if you can choose colors, not just a color that you happen to like. Hey, I like blue, or hey, I like purple. Well, yeah, but are you choosing colors for your brand that align with your core message? Like the logo that you're using and your website and things like that, those can evoke certain emotions that you really want from your audience, and that'll help strengthen your brand identity. And I'm going to give you some really cool examples here. I have a bunch of examples of this. So if you can, find colors that match with what you want to communicate about your brand. Now, as I dig into this, if you are needing to select colors for your brand, or just make sure that your logo is communicating what you want it to communicate, this is a great book. This is a picture of my book. You can see how weathered it is. I've been using this for decades. This is the Pantone Guide to Communicating with Color. Great book. This is my favorite book on color, hands down. And some of this list has taken some inspiration from this book. Here's another book. I got this in Toronto. For some reason, Toronto, I feel like they just have amazing logos as you're walking around. I don't know why, but there must be some really good designers in that city. I got this when I was there. I was feeling very inspired. But this is excellent on color as well. And then one last one. Got this one in college design school. This was the color book that we were assigned to, or one of them. And really, really good book as well. This one's a little bit more dated, but still good. So if you're looking for some books to help you out here, beside like in addition to this webinar, those strongly recommended. But let's look at some colors. This is to me super fun. So as you look at these colors, these are just photos I took in like the grocery store and a couple other stores right by our office, within the last week or two. But so pardon the cell phone pics, but I just wanted to get some real life examples instead of trying to pull from the web. Like these are good examples of product or logos that use these colors, and they totally do match what the colors are known to evoke. So here's Brillo pad. Now I wouldn't say Brillo is sexy, not even in the least, but man, it matches a lot of these other ones: exciting, energizing, dynamic, aggressive, powerful, stimulating. That's a good match. How about bright pink? Exciting, happy, hot, energetic, attention-getting, youthful, spirited, fun, trendy. Yeah, I mean, this kind of matches like all of those, mostly. Light pink. I'm not going to go through every single color, but I'm going to go through a handful of them. Light pink, romantic, soft, sweet, tender. These are the things that your mind is thinking subconsciously when you see this color. So these guys did a great job, I'm assuming. I didn't even look at their product, but picking this color as their main logo color. So I'm not going to read all these. It doesn't make sense to you. We don't have time to, but mauve, burgundy, fuchsia, brick red, these all evoke certain kinds of emotions. Orange, this is a really popular one. When you see an orange logo, you are almost for sure thinking at least some of these things. Now, there's different approaches that your business can take to picking out your colors. And I've seen businesses just say, hey, I just like this color. Business owners saying, I just like this color. This is the color we're using. I mean, I think you should like your logo and your colors, but is that more important to you than what you're trying to communicate and what's going to resonate with your target audience? I don't know about that. So we see orange companies, a lot of them are using, a lot of companies that use orange, they're probably wanting to evoke a lot of these emotions. So one route that you could go, and this is what I would do if I were you, is, okay, we need to come up with a color scheme, like 1 or 2 colors, or 3 or 4 colors, whatever you're choosing. And we want them to be colors that look good together, but also that communicate our message, right? So what I always tell people is I always say, pull out the books and see what colors evoke what emotions, and go through them one by one and see which colors evoke the most, the highest match of the things that your business or organization are, what you're trying to communicate. And whatever the best matches are, see if you can use those, see if those can look good together. That's what I always suggest. And again, there's other approaches that you can take. And this isn't even mentioning the combinations of colors, because combinations of colors can kind of evoke other emotions as well. But if there's any particular colors that you want me to camp out on, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep buzzing through. But some of you might be wondering about, well, wait, what does this color represent, or can you pause on this one? Green. Okay, great. I don't think we hit green yet. If so, I'll go back. But there are different types of green, even in this presentation. And here's what we have now. Navy, this is, I think, the most used color in logos, and here's why. Look at all these things that it represents, all sorts of things that a business wants to communicate. But greens, okay, so we have aqua. So there's different types of greens. And thanks for chiming in. So, if you're thinking aqua, well, that makes sense if you're trying to communicate like cool, fresh, liquid, ocean, refreshing, healing. Now, are these guys trying to communicate all these things? Probably not. But some of them they felt were a strong enough match. Light green, look at this green down here. calm, quiet, soothing, neutral. So if it's that kind of green, that feels totally different, right? Dark green, that feels totally different too. Nature, trustworthy, refreshing, cool, restful, stately, forest, quiet, woodsy. I would say traditional and money, and some of these other ones, trustworthy, refreshing. Like some of these are a match to Starbucks. Probably not a couple. They don't care about nature, probably, or forest. Yeah, I don't think so. But some of these other ones are a good enough match. Olive green, if this is what you're thinking, this is kind of like a high-end clothing brand. It looks like in a store right down the street from us. Military, well, not here, but camouflage, safari, classic, drab, probably these ones more. Bright green feels totally different. Fresh, grass, Irish, lively, spring, foliage, outdoorsy. Bright yellow green. And I remember when I was going to design school, they always say avoid chartreuse, because it's studies show that it can actually make people feel sick, nauseous. So yeah, but it was very trendy. That color was very trendy. I think 90s or early 2000s. You'd see very artsy people wearing like chartreuse, But and there's lime, and then this feels totally different, in terms of the emotions that it's evoking, right? Is that helpful to you? Let me know. Let me know if there were any other colors that you wanted to camp out on here. Let's see here. What about tie-dye? Oh my goodness. Great question, Nikki. Wow. Well, I mean, I'm just going to respond with my own opinion here. Oh, good. I'm glad that was helpful, Lindsay. So Nikki, with tie-dye, I mean, first of all, I think tie-dye that's a color combination, and it depends on what colors are in that combination, right? So if it's if you have like bright, fun, warm colors, then tie-dye, I mean, typically people see tie-dye in general as really fun, creative, open, free, I think kind of like they don't necessarily need to be hippie-ish, but they could be, or it could just be someone who's like, I mean, my son wears tie-dye every long once in a while, and he's probably never even heard the word hippie before. So, but I think it's really fun, it's creative. But I also have a distant relative, and every once in a while he'll post on Facebook these tie-dye shirts that he makes, and they aren't always so warm and friendly. Some of them are more like weird aliens or things like that, and they're like black and green, or and I would say, well, that feels a bit different, even though it's tie-dye. So I'd say it depends on what colors are used. Can also it feels creative and imaginative, but not as warm and friendly, I guess, some of the ones that he does. So it depends on the colors in it. Okay, thanks for chiming in, Lindsay and Nikki. Just a couple more here before we wrap up this criteria. But so black, I just saw this Maybelline logo in the back, and that's just a classic. Black is such a powerful and I would say common logo color, but it's powerful, elegant, mysterious, heavy, basic, bold, classic, strong. So for a lot of companies, this is great. And for certain companies, this is not great, right? Like a baby's, like a diaper brand or something. I probably wouldn't want to use that. That's not communicating. That's probably not communicating what they want to communicate. Nikki's saying my mermaid name is Diva the Hippie Mermaid, so I use a lot of colors. Okay, I mean that's tons of fun. So I would think tons of colors. I think that's probably just super fun and creative and imaginative is probably how that feels without seeing what those colors are. Okay, charcoal gray, professional, classic, expensive, sophisticated, solid, enduring, mature, neutral gray, taupe, silver, gold. So took you through all those. If you want this slide deck, I think we could make that available afterwards if I was going way too fast, or if you didn't reach out about one of those colors in particular, or as I mentioned, those books are very good as well. Okay, we're getting close to the end here, which is good because we're starting to get low on time, I think. But is it readable? So your logo should be easy to read, close up and far away. Can people easily read your logo? And it sounds so simple, right? But And this is from a photo shoot we did right down the street last year in the winter. But to me, this brand right here, this is a restaurant that's been around for decades. You know, whether you like their logo or not is besides the point. Their logo is really easy to read. I think most people would agree. So is it, you know, that's a good thing to make sure that your logo is easy to read. Now, here's an example. Are you guys familiar with this one, Lord and Taylor? They had to redesign their logo because people just couldn't read it. Now, I don't know that I love the way this one on the left looks, but I love how unique it is. But man, if one of my parents looked at that, they would look at it and look away. They wouldn't even try to read it, right? I think I would sit there and try to figure it out. So they ended up making it more legible. Here's another example. I don't follow racing, but every once in a while I'll see a truck drive by and they have some racing stickers on the back. And if I see something like this, a lot of times I can't even read what the signature says. I have no idea what that logo even says. Now this one says Dale Jr. But man, I think, and I guess that's just that style, but I think a lot of people probably see this and wouldn't be able to read that. Here's another one. I saw this business right down the street yesterday, and I haven't been inside. It looks like a really nice place, but their logo, although I can read this pretty easily, if it's at an angle and the logo is on glass and I'm walking at an angle and the sun's hitting it, the sun's kind of in my eyes, I actually had a really hard time reading this one in person. I don't think I have bad eyesight or anything. So, okay, number 14, passes the 5-second test. So the message your logo conveys should be pretty recognizable. This can be a hard one. And I can automatically think of great logos that don't pass the 5-second test, like Coca-Cola. Now you know it because you've grown up with it, but otherwise you probably wouldn't know what Coca-Cola is just looking at it for 5 seconds and looking away, right? So if someone were to look at your logo for 5 seconds and then look away, would they know what your business is selling? It's a great test. I mean, even if you just test yourself on that, that's a great thing. I've also heard of people doing a Starbucks test where they say, hey, I'll buy you a cup of coffee if you'll do a 5-second test for me. And just doing what's called the Starbucks test, where or whatever coffee shop you go to, and you just, if they agree to it, you get them a coffee afterwards, but they look at something for 5 seconds and then you close it and you say, okay, what did you see? Could be a fun thing to test out. Now, here's the sign right side of the office building that I'm in. I cleaned it up a tiny bit in Photoshop, but I think that if you were to look at this sign for 5 seconds, you see our logo and another logo and some other just text business names on there, and then you look away, I'll go this direction, I think you probably wouldn't know what we sell. And so I'm picking on myself for that one right now. I like our logo, but I think that you wouldn't know what we sell. So I think that could be better. And that's okay. That's okay. But I think if anything, you might know, if you even looked at these ones, well, at least their text is descriptive enough that I would know generally what these guys do, at least a little bit. So just something to think about. But here's some examples. You look at this for 5 seconds and you look away. I don't think you're going to wonder what these guys sell, right? It's pretty obvious. Here's another one, Samaritan's Purse. I think this logo is, it's so conceptually clear that I can't help but to get a pretty good idea of what they do, even after just looking at it for 5 seconds. So good job. And then here's another one. I've never used this service, but man, if I look at that logo, I think it's just so clear what they do based on the color, the typography, and that heart, right? Okay, last one. All right. Is your logo culturally relevant to your target audience? I've already kind of mentioned this a little bit, but just to make this our final one as we land this plane here. So some businesses, very honestly, some business owners are very closed off to, anything that other than what they think about their logo. For example, they might think, I want my logo to be green, because green is my favorite color. They might not have the or blue or whatever. I didn't mean to pick on whoever it was that asked about green, but if you're only going on what your favorite color is, and you don't have that design expertise, and you haven't done any research on that color psychology, and your brand isn't succeeding, it might be good to try to figure out what's going to resonate with your target audience. Figure that into your planning phase, right? So are you just choosing something that just you think looks good, or are you actually considering what your primary target audience wants to see? The colors, the typography, the mark, the image in your logo, if you're using one of those. Some people call that an icon, but are you just going with what you like, or are you considering your target audience? Now, here's a couple examples. So this is our senior designer. This is from a photo shoot we did last year, and he's just chatting with somebody in the kitchen of our office here, and he's talking. And now, if we were designing for him as the target audience, this would be the kind of logo. This is a local business that I know that he goes to. This would be something that he gravitates toward. This is not at all something that I personally would design because I liked it. Okay, and I didn't design this logo, but if I did, it would be a stretch. Like, I have to put myself in his shoes as I create this logo, right? And here's another one, Alicia here in our office, same photo shoot. But so I don't think, now if she saw this logo driving down the street, and she could because she drives past that store every once in a while, she's not at all going to think, oh man, I got to turn in there. No, but if she sees this logo, this is the kind of logo that she gravitates to. It's more floral, more girly, more soft, a little bit more creative. That's the way her brain works, and neither of them is right or wrong. It's just that's what gravitates toward her. She gravitates to. So the recommendation there would be to just make sure that you're designing with your target audience in mind, right? Okay. So hopefully, you're going to take as much as you can of these different criteria and work through it, either making sure that your logo is, matching those, or if you're creating a new logo, trying to go for as big a match as you can with all those. But once you've created that logo, or once you have your logo and the rest of your branding and identity in place, you of course want to keep that consistent through your website, your social media accounts, like we've talked about, your printed resources, so brochures or books or booklets or whatever kind of media you have, and try to be as consistent as you can throughout everything, including all your communications, emails, for clarity and credibility. And even on this one, even regarding the tone and the things, the communications and messaging, we're working with one brand, and it's very serious. In fact, it's all about research, and it's actually appeals to skeptics. That it's very scientific, and they had someone doing their social media, and they were dropping in smiley faces emojis and these other things that they felt very, very off-brand. And I was just shocked, like, ooh, this isn't how the messaging is on the website. So yeah, making sure everything's nice and consistent will really help strengthen your brand. But I think that about wraps it up. So we might have a couple of minutes. If anybody has any other final questions, we can get to those now. And if you have any other comments or anything, feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll go ahead and give you a minute here. Looks like one has come up. Okay, Lindsay's just saying, thanks for your time. Yeah, absolutely. I love this topic, so I think it's a blast to chat through this. I speak on a couple different things, and I would say this is, for some reason, this one's just so fun to me. So thanks so much for being here. Nikki's saying, thanks a lot, learned a lot. Come on back and visit. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do miss Reading. Danielle, thanks so much, Danielle. Appreciate it. Now, Emily is chiming in as well. Thanks so much, Emily. So if you have any questions, drop them in. It sounds like we might have addressed them as we went along, which is great too. I love when these are more conversational like that. So thanks for engaging and staying awake and everything. I really appreciate it. If you were to reach out and you needed some advice, you wanted to have any one-on-one, counseling, that's actually something that we do for free. Your taxpayer, your taxpayer dollars already pay for it. This is something that we provide at no extra cost to you. So I feel like I'm taking Emily's talking stick away. So I didn't mean to do that, Emily, but I'll just, I got the thumbs up from Emily. Thanks, Emily. But feel free to reach out if you want any advice, one-on-one training or anything like that, or if you want to, get on our mailing list and find out about other fun webinars like this one. We'd love to hear from you. Emily, what else am I missing? Is there anything else that you want to add on here?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that might be all. Thank you guys so much for joining. Hope you have a great rest of your day and take care.